Welcome to the Impatient Entrepreneur Podcast, a show where we hear from entrepreneurs and business owners who are chomping at the bit to make their mark on the world. I'm your host, Lauren Quidar Cockrell. Now, let's hurry up and get to the good stuff. Welcome back, everyone. Today, I'm joined by fellow marketer Ann Laffin, founder of Fin Marketing Management, and is uniquely focused on the startup space. And so I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. Ann, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Very happy to be here.
Yeah. So why startups? Because that's actually not a space I spend a lot of time on, to be honest. It's such a chaotic time and so much is changing, and it can be hard to deliver an ROI as a marketer at that. When it's like, oh no, this is what we're doing. No, just kidding. Now this one. So why have you done this?
Some days I ask myself the same question. Why have I done this? But as crazy as it sounds, and it does sound crazy, that's actually why I like it. It's because it is so chaotic, and it feels a little bit like, I was going to say like the Earth's creation stage, right? Like It is, things are constantly in flux, and there is so much creating happening. And I just find that very appealing. Yes, it can be very frustrating and there are a lot of changes, but there's also a lot of really cool things that happen at that stage of a company. And so I just like it. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'm so glad you do, because it's hard to not be available really to serve startups. And that's, sort of, it's a little bit of a boundary. I mean, we do it sometimes. It's certainly if it's a serial entrepreneur, where they're a little more grounded by the fourth one.
Yes.
So much more clarity. And so, I'm glad that you're there for them, because people do deserve support at that stage. But yeah, it can be tough. So
yes, for sure.
So thank you. Thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
So I probably know the answer to this, but Ann, are you an impatient entrepreneur?
Yeah. 100%. Yes. I'm impatient with a lot of things, sadly. But yeah, I mean, I think part of running your own business is wanting to have all the answers all the time. At least I'm speaking for myself here, and some of the founders that I work with too. It seems like there's this rush to kind of be ready to go all the time. And I found that just is not the case most of the time. There's a time for speed for sure, but sometimes it's worth slowing down and taking a beat and being strategic. But yes, I am rather impatient, and I love being an entrepreneur.
So do you have, I feel like all of my entrepreneur clients are impatient. It's just whether they've been doing this for 30 years or 3 months. It just comes with the territory. But in that early stage of a business growth and starting, do you have a particular methodology that you are having folks go through to kind of almost engineer patience or to yield a particular result as you're getting going?
It's a really good question. I think my approach is to bring everything back to basics. So if you don't have a good foundation, even when things are chaotic, some kind of foundation, everything just falls over. So if you're rushing too early just to kind of get something out the door, there's usually a lot of cleanup and fixing. So I do that I build this foundation by looking at messaging first. To me, that literally is the foundation of all your marketing and anything you're going to bring to market. So I start there. And then I develop some type of, I'm started calling them micro plans. So these like little mini marketing plans to get everyone marching in the same direction. They are usually bite-sized because, again, resources, chaos, all the things that are happening in a startup make it challenging to stick to a large, long-term plan. But so that's kind of my methodology, is to kind of like get everyone focused around the right messaging, around what we need to say, understanding our audience, and then having some kind of plan of attack so that we're marching in the right direction.
Okay. That's wise. We also often start with, we always start with strategy, and there's always a messaging component to it, but you might be more, I don't know, might be scaled up a little bit further. And then I'm just gonna be nosy. Do you choose funded startups, or are you taking a stake in their business to help it work out financially? Like, walk me through that.
That's a great question. Yeah. So the answer here, I feel like every marketer's answer is it depends. It does depend. I've actually worked with many different stages of startups, some that are definitely funded up to Series B, some that have some grant funding, some that are bootstrapped. I have not, since going out on my own, I have not taken equity as payments, but I would definitely be open to that. I have taken equity at startups where I've been a full-time employee. And I think that that's a really smart way to kind of, one, have more of a stake in what's happening with the company and the future of the company. And for startups that are really capital strapped, that's a great way to get some additional help and expertise when you really can't pay someone quite yet. So I've worked with all stages of founders, all stages of startups, and they all, they're all unique, but open to all that.
Yes, I do. I mean, everyone has a budget.
Yes.
It just, obviously it varies, but yes, being creative, particularly in those early stages of a business is helpful, particularly if they are more bootstrapped.
Yes.
Cool. All right. So, are you impatient about anything in particular right now? Do you have something up your sleeve that you're rolling out soon? Books, podcasts, new service lines, or just business in general?
Well, so I have been working on an email marketing course, and I was actually extraordinarily impatient getting it out the door. And so learning here on this one, I wish I had taken more time to actually follow my own path and my own guidance that I would give to my startup founders here. And so I'm actually relaunching it soon, kind of with a different lens, adding in some different content, adding in some additional help and resources to it to get it out the door. So that's what was impatiently working on for sure. The other thing kind of along the same vein that I have been working on is just getting, I think it's good timing for this, working with founders to get them to understand the importance of planning and of strategy. I'm just having this kind of regular conversation over and over again about how strategy equals slow.
Interesting.
And I don't agree with that.
No.
I think there are times when strategy can be slow, but I think more often than not being strategic means that you're making up time in the back end.
Yes.
Things. And so it's either you take the time in the beginning or you take the time at the end when you don't usually have it. So those are kind of the two very different things that I'm working on, but those are the two.
I want to hang here for a second. I definitely have had the conversation before. It's like, well, if we had just done some strategy to begin with, it helps you go so much quicker later. Yes, you have to pause for a moment to get those ducks in a row to decide what you're going to do or you're not going to do. But you always pay for it later. And usually you pay for it a lot more than if you had stopped to do it in the beginning.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. It's kind of like, measure twice, cut once. I feel, if for the ones who really resist strategy, and actually that's one of our core values because we believe in it so much, strategy first. Like, we're not coming here to just buy a hamburger from us and walk away. Like, we are wrapping our arms around everything. We don't want to have unintended consequences of anything that we're doing for you. We want to think through. We don't want to be so exhaustive that you never move forward, but we certainly want to, if you don't know where you're going, any road's going to get you there.
That's true.
And so it's totally echo that 100%. And just, it serves you so much better just to take a moment. Like, you're going to pay for it one way or the other, just like you said, but it's going to be a lot more painful if you do it later.
That's so much more painful. Yeah. I have, so like I did not come up with the saying. I don't know actually who came up with the saying, but one of my clients says it, and he's basically like, we don't have the time to do it right. We have the time to clean it up later. And it's so frustrating, and he gets it. He understands what's happening, and it can be very maddening for a team. So I think teaching the value of strategy, but I think also the speed that can go with it, right? It doesn't have to be the slow, clunky thing.
Yeah. If you're just throwing spaghetti on the wall, you're just having a lot to clean up later.
So much. Yes.
So how do you fuel yourself as a leader of your business and of all your, the cats that you're herding in the founder world? Are you do you read books? If you have any that you are particularly important to you, I'd love for you to share them. Podcasts, conferences, all that stuff. Like, how do you make sure that you're on the cutting edge of your industry and business, and then also just making sure that you're growing as a leader?
So I learn a great deal and spend a great deal of time on LinkedIn. There is so much content that is being pumped through there right now. Some of it's absolutely outstanding, some of it not so much, but I suppose you could say that about probably any channel. And I'll find a leader or two that I like on there and we'll go to their newsletter. Like that's almost that's my standard process right now. Newsletters are kind of about the amount of content I can consume at a time. It's a quick hit. I know when it's going to arrive in my inbox. I personally, that's how I like to consume content. So those are probably my favorite ways to stay up to date. In terms of books, one of my favorite books for business that resonated so much as an entrepreneur was The War of Art.
Yes.
And the idea of
Stephen Pressfield?
I believe so.
Yes.
No, something doesn't sound right there.
No, I'm thinking of a different one. The War of Art. Okay.
So the idea here being that resistance is kind of all around you, right? You are, as an entrepreneur, as anyone going through life, there's always going to be this nagging voice that says, you can do it tomorrow. You don't need to, that's too hard. I mean, I'm oversimplifying this a little bit here, but as someone that's starting a business, that resistance is always present, right? Live to fight another day of well, it's going to be too hard to find another client, or I don't need this software because it's too expensive, or whatever. It's these excuses that pop up. And so I think learning how to live with that resistance and get over it daily, running your own business is key, and understanding that it's always going to be there, but you can get better at, I guess, living with your demons, your work demons, maybe. So,
yeah. Oh man, I feel like we could do a whole episode about that. So, switching gears a little bit. So, how long have you had your business now?
It'll be 4 years, August 1. So
okay, a COVID baby.
I'm a COVID baby. It's true. Yep.
And what was the genesis of it? You left an in-house gig to do this? Okay.
I was head of marketing at a financial planning software. I'd been there for about 3 years. And I said when I got there to myself, not to anyone else, but I was like, this is the last time that I want, at least for now, that I want to take a corporate gig for a bit. I really wanted to try my own thing. And so we were all working from home at that point. And I had been working with an executive coach for a while. The bug was there, and I was like, this is the time. I'm here. This is a strange time. They were doing some cuts, and I was like, this is perfect. I was just ready. And I had a client already lined up, who's a friend of mine. They're still a client to this day. And so I took the leap into the abyss, right? Not having a full sense for exactly what I wanted to do, and kind of built as I went. And here I am. So
there you go. Never going back. So in those 4 years, has there been a moment where that dream was like, whoops, what have I done here? Where it felt like the rug got pulled out from under you. You just thought, oh boy, I'm not sure if my baby marketing company is going to make it.
For sure.
And then ultimately it turned out to be one of the best things that could happen.
Yes. So I think it was the beginning of 2023. Time has still been sort of a weird thing since COVID.
What is time?
What is time? A great question. But so they had SVB Bank, just basically which funded so many startups, went under. And it changed the funding landscape. It has not been the same since. And so I feel like what I've seen since then, the market has changed drastically. There's a lot more fractional help out there now. There's a lot more people that realize they want to do their own thing. Funding has tightened up drastically for startups. So it's like a whole different environment now than it was when I started back in 2020. What it's forced me to do is to, one, take a good hard look at my offer. Like that was key. It couldn't just be like, I help startups. Like that's not cutting it anymore. There's a lot of people that help startups. What do I do specifically that actually helps? What are the results? What is that outcome that I provide when I work with them? So that was one piece. The other was to also take a look at like expenses, like the operational part of my business and making sure that I was buttoned up from a systems process, from a financial standpoint. I've never run a business before. So all that was really new for me. And I wasn't great at it right out of the gate. I got to be honest with you. And so it was a great time to kind of be like, how can I make improvements from not only an offer perspective, but from an operational perspective. And that has really helped. You know, me kind of taking that time to dial it back, be thoughtful and strategic, and also take a look at the market. So there's that kind of like market research for myself here. Really has helped, I think, turn around who I work with now, what kind of product I offer. And it's been really nice, to be honest with you. I don't feel like I'm doing all the things anymore. I'm being very strategic about what I offer and who I help. So
walking that walk.
Walking that walk.
So I'll put you on the spot. What did you dial your offer into?
Yeah. So when I first started, I did a lot of content. I did some planning. I was very much a Swiss Army knife. And while I don't mind being a Swiss Army knife, my heart is really more geared towards messaging, strategy, and planning. And also this kind of like advisory component. So there are times when startups will come to me and say, I don't necessarily need a retainer. I just need someone for 2 hours this month to give me some guidance and point me in the right direction. And those two things, so this messaging, strategy, planning, advisory, has been awesome. I really enjoy it. It's been a lot of fun and it's been really effective.
Gotcha. And then are you willing to share any of the things you buttoned up on the process and in-house side? I'm just curious.
Well, so I had a lot of, I feel like, unnecessary software. Like there was, because I'm a solo shop, it's pretty easy for me to track my expenses, right? I don't have a million different employees. I had a lot of software. I had software that was helping with like LinkedIn outreach. I had software that was helping with accounting. I feel like I had a bunch of these different, and I was like, I'm only using a tiny percentage of these, and yet I'm spending a lot of money. So I dialed back, got rid of the LinkedIn outreach piece. I got rid of actually the accounting software that I was using. And was able to use the invoicing kind of accounting software that I already had. If this makes any sense, I don't know if it does.
Yeah,
anyway,
I got you.
there was overlap basically in kind of some of the software that I was using, and that saved, I mean, several $100s a month, which just may not sound like a lot, but again, for a solo shop, it adds up, right? So, and I haven't missed it at all.
Yep. A small corollary. I held on to Adobe Creative Suite for myself for years. Am I designing anything? Me personally, am I designing anything in Illustrator every single month?
I
am not. If I do anything, I mean, I might need to open up someone's file from time to time. But if I'm doing anything, I'll do something in Canva or something like that.
Right.
But again, I'm not the designer on our team. Finally, I was like, okay, it's time
to let it go.
And then going back to your the war of art, sort of one of those like it was the sunk cost thing, was like, I've been paying for it, but now I don't want to let it go. And then if I let it go, it's just like I talked to myself for a long time, and finally it was like, you girlfriend.
Yeah. And how has it been for you? Did it go okay?
Fine. Yes, we survived. I did have to reactivate it for my team, but I don't need it.
I think I had like, I had a similar story there, and I think I accidentally had like a second subscription somehow running with that too. Like that was, it's just,
Yeah.
Stuff's running
It
in the
happens.
background. It happens.
There's an app for that. And sometimes you have two for that.
And sometimes two.
Yep. So growing up, was there a personality trait that you have where you were either criticized for or just made to feel like, this is my weakness, but then ultimately as you grew up you realized that it was actually your superpower?
Totally. Oh, I nailed it with this one. So I was definitely the sensitive kid. Like, I feel like everyone's like, you're so sensitive. You're so sensitive. Why does it bother you? And as I got older, I realized, one, it is important to be able to manage your reaction and understand my own reactions to people and why they're occurring. But I've also found that my sensitivity makes me highly in tune with my clients and able to observe things that a lot of people miss. It makes my power of observation is usually very keen. And while there are still days where I feel sensitive, I've used that and I've turned that into a superpower for sure. Now I don't see it as a negative. I see it as a positive. And I think my clients do too. I feel like it comes out in my work and in my relationship building. So that's the one.
We are two sensitive peas in a pod.
Sweet peas.
Yeah, sweet pea. Yeah, that's actually what my dad calls me, sweet pea. Yes, it can be extremely painful, but it is. Boy, is it good for messaging.
It really is. I find on that front too, it can be a little, I call it like out in the ether sometimes when I'm trying to explain some of those concepts to clients. I'm always like, just hang with me for a little bit, like let's get into your customer's head. And I try to paint the picture. And the best way I can do that is through some of that power of observation and empathy and sensitivity that I've honed over the years.
Yeah. So. I mean, being able to drop into somebody's shoes. I mean, maybe we've never actually walked that journey, but to be able to imagine what it's like with pretty vivid detail is a superpower. I strongly believe.
Yep. So, I think so too.
Yes. So what's a piece of advice that you can give our listeners to make their lives and businesses stronger and better today?
I'd actually say cut yourself a little slack and have a little grace. Impatient entrepreneur, right? Part of that is just this constant drive and need, I think, to push. And a lot of times what gets lost in that is the realization that it's okay to not know it all right away. It is actually okay to make mistakes and that you're going to make mistakes and that take a breath to learn from them and then move on. So I think that would probably be, that's my advice right there. It's something I think I'm still learning and, trying to get better at myself, but I think it's really important. It's how that's how you can, I think, continue to be as an entrepreneur.
Sure. And do you feel like, especially with your clients, I mean, are you really counseling them on, you're in the next couple of years are pure chaos, baby, like buckle in, but it's okay.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's been a wild ride and it's forced me to be very resilient and my clients too. And I think that's where too, that relationship building with these clients, I'm definitely serving an advisory capacity. Some days it's just a hand holding capacity, like we're going to get through it, right? We're going to work through it together. Here's how we can change. And it's a wild ride for sure, and there's definitely some counseling and advisory and hand holding that goes with it. So.
And then once you move them past the, first couple of years or so, are you positioning them to hire in-house, to go on to a different agency? Are you retaining them? What does that look like long term?
So it's a little of column A, a little of column B. I'd like to say that the best case scenario would be that they outgrow me. I don't feel like beyond like a series B, I shouldn't be there anymore. Maybe you'd come back to me in an advisory capacity if you needed it, but at some point they will need in-house head of marketing. It's usually around that Series A, Series B timeframe. They need to start building a team, and I'm happy to help. I've helped in the hiring process to make sure they're getting the right team put together. But I also can be and have been that kind of head of marketing for them for quite a while too. So, but yeah, best case scenario, they would outgrow me. They're having a wonderful, happy time, and they sail into the sunset with their new head of marketing.
And then are you also supporting them through those funding rounds, like helping position their pitch decks and all that good stuff?
Yes. I don't do a ton of that work, but I have done that work. I wouldn't say I feel like I'm an expert there, but for me, those decks are really about narrative, really having a good story and about showing how like the why you, why now, and why it matters. There's got to be a good story in there. Otherwise, well,
it's hard, as someone who does this as well, they kind of get stuck in their own little story loop, and you're like, that doesn't matter to literally anybody else.
No.
You got to really, tease it out, and you're like, no, this is it. This is that throwaway comment that you just made. Like, that's it. Yeah. That's where it is. So cool. All right. And I'm so glad we got to do this. Where can our startup founders find you?
You can find me at finmarketingm.com or on LinkedIn, where apparently I like to live and breathe.
Apparently so. We'll put the links in the show notes. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to The Impatient Entrepreneur. Love the podcast? Be sure to share it with a friend or colleague and give us a 5-star review. You can also chat with us on Instagram or Facebook at The Impatient Entrepreneur Pod. Want to star on a feature episode? Head over to theimpatiententrepreneur.com to inquire. Thank you to the team at Quidar & Co. for believing in me and bringing this podcast to life. And thank you to Carson Childers for mixing and editing this episode. I can't wait to see you next time.